And welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a great way to use up some leftover pumpkin pie filling. Say you've made some pumpkin pie, and you've made too much filling to fill your pies. You don't want to overfill them because they will overflow. You can make this amazing pumpkin pie flavored souffle out of them, and it is super, super easy, and here are our ingredients. So obviously we're going to be using some eggs for this. Here's some of our leftover pumpkin pie filling. And a beurre manier. Now this is sort of like a roux, but it's uncooked. So it's equal parts butter and flour, just made into kind of a rough dough. And we'll be using that a little bit later to cool down our mixture. Now, first thing we're going to do is separate the eggs. Now we're going to be using all of these eggs, but we do have to separate them because the yolks and the whites are going to be used differently. So we're just going to break them into a bowl to make sure that they are, there's no bits of shell or anything in there. And you do want to make sure in the bowl that you're going to whip the egg whites, there is no grease or anything at all. It has to be super, super clean or else your egg whites will fall. So next thing we're going to do is heat up our pumpkin pie filling. So this has been in the fridge for a little while, and we're just going to warm this up in a pot. We're also going to basically enrich this with the egg yolks. Now, the pumpkin pie filling is made from pureed pumpkin, and we made the pumpkin ourselves. So there's some evaporated milk and some egg in there already. So it's already sort of a custard. So what we're doing with the egg yolks is making it a little bit softer because we want it to not be quite pie filling consistency. We want it to be a little bit softer so that the flour in the beurre manier will have the ability to hold it when it gains a little bit of loft in the oven. So we're going to mix those egg yolks in there. Make sure that it is getting nice and smooth. You want to make sure that you're keeping it well combined. You want to stir it pretty frequently so that it doesn't start to stick or scorch on the bottom. When it starts getting pretty warm, we're going to add in our beurre manier. And this is going to increasingly thicken it as time goes on. It's a sort of a slow process, but like so many puddings, all of a sudden it's going to come together. So that's going to melt in there. And it's just going to continue to cook. We're going to make sure that we're keeping it well stirred. Once the butter and flour are in there, you do need to keep a pretty close eye on it on the heat because you really don't want that to stick and burn. But you can see how thick it's getting. There's some bits near the bottom that are getting a little bit more solid, which is great, but you've had that beautiful silky texture. So when that gets pretty close to being ready, when it's pretty thick and the beurre manier has completely been incorporated, we're going to start whipping our egg whites. And we're going to add a little bit of sugar in there, a little bit of salt. If you have cream of tartar, you can add just a little bit of tartaric acid to make sure that they hold their loft. And we're going to go all the way to at least medium peaks, but ideally we want this to go all the way to stiff peaks. So there we go. And if you want to, you can do this with a stand mixer. You don't want to overwhip though. You want to make sure you don't overwhip this or they will just collapse and the sugar will sort of run out as syrup. And that's less than ideal. So we're going to make sure we don't overwhip that and go just as far as stiff peaks and no further. So once that has reached its final consistency, we're going to take it off the heat and let it sit for a little while, and then we're going to very carefully incorporate that into our big frothy egg whites. So you want to use a whisk and just very carefully make sure that you're sort of folding it in and incorporating it. It really helps if you sort of run it through the whisk and let it sort of drop through, and it will combine very gently. You don't want to knock all the air out of the egg whites. You want to make sure that it retains a lot of that loft. Now, the flour in the pumpkin pie filling that you added in the beurre manier is going to help this retain its loft when it comes out of the oven. So it's going to puff up a lot because it's got those beautiful air bubbles in that frothy egg white, and the flour is going to help it stay in place. Now, you don't want to overmix this. Again, because it's going to knock so much air out of the egg whites if you mix it too much. And you want to make sure that you have a lot of loft, a lot of fluff in there. So once you've got everything well combined, it can still have some little streaks of white, egg white in there that aren't super, super well combined, but it should be pretty uniform and pretty smooth. We're going to put this into some ramekins. Now you can butter the ramekins. It's not honestly all that necessary for this. And they can be pretty full because they're going to puff up and they're going to hopefully hold their shape pretty well. So it's going to go into the oven. And then that comes out, and you can see here, everything has puffed up a little. You've got those beautiful cracks up on the top. They have a little bit of jiggle to them still, but they are pretty firm, so they are set. And those are ready to come out. You see they even have a little bit of color on top there. That is perfect. These could probably go for another few minutes just to get a little bit more color. But other than that, these are totally done. They are ready to go. And you cut into that. And you see that beautiful fluffy inside. A little bit of crispiness on top. And it really holds that loft really nicely. Super light, very delicious, and gives you that pumpkin pie feeling without eating a bunch of crust if you don't like the crust. Really, really delicious, and we hope you'll give this a try. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.